It may have been old-fashioned and inefficient, but the steam locomotive had a universal appeal which crossed all boundaries of age and class. Even 50 years after the final steam locomotive rolled out of Swindon Works, it still has the power to weave its magic, and on the ever-growing number of preserved railway lines, you can still sample a ride behind the real thing. But it could easily have been a very different story. Back in the early 1960s, steam was a dirty word. The road network was expanding, the motor car was king, and Dr Beeching's report had been published by the government. It saw little future for the railways, and they were soon being closed down and torn up in a nationwide purge of branch and cross-country lines. At the same time, more than 17,000 steam engines were making a final one-way journey to the scrapyard. But a growing band of determined enthusiasts resolved to save something of the steam age. All over the country, branch lines were rescued and reopened as tourist attractions, offering the chance to ride once again behind a steam locomotive. Today, railway preservation is a multi-million-pound business and a major player in the expanding tourist industry. Every year, these reborn railway lines carry more passengers, and every year they put back more of the track that Dr Beeching helped to wipe off the map. Some far-sighted groups are even building their own brand new steam locomotives, guaranteeing steam's survival for the foreseeable future. They may be recreating the past, but these are not reenactors dressing up for the cameras. Relaying a preserved railway line is as real today as it was for the navvies in the Victorian era. It's a tough job, physical, exhausting and challenging, but ultimately rewarding. It's a job where the day's achievements can literally be measured in yards of track. Even before Dr Beeching took up his axe, this stretch of the former East Grinstead to Lewes route in Sussex was scheduled for early closure. But it was to become the line that really launched the preservation of full-sized railways, and has steadily grown into a major player in the Premier League of tourist attractions. When a small group of enthusiasts clubbed together to buy the line, they could barely afford an isolated 5-mile section.
1959 was the founders' meeting. We elected a committee, all full of enthusiasm. The locomotive department quickly got itself organised, you see, because they realised that steam will soon disappear. It will be a unique situation of having a steam engine.
As the line's popularity increased, thoughts turned to relaying the missing track and reconnecting with the main line at East Grinstead. By 1994, the line's length had been doubled to 10 miles. But ahead lay the biggest challenge of all. In the wake of Beeching, when the planners saw no future use for the abandoned trackbed, the local authority dumped millions of cubic yards of household refuse in a cutting at Imberhorn and buried it under a mass of earth and rubble. This festering legacy of short-sighted planning all had to be removed before the Bluebell could link up once again with the rest of the network. It cost millions to do it, but in 2013 the task was completed and a Bluebell locomotive finally steamed through the cutting and into East Grinstead Station. Few railways were more widely mourned than the legendary narrow-gauge line that ran from Barnstaple to Linton in North Devon. It closed in 1935, an early victim of road competition, but it had a magic all its own and has never been forgotten. It was affectionately known as the Toy Railway. the track was less than half the gauge of the main line, and the little trains seemed like perfect scale models as they twisted and climbed their way through some of the most beautiful scenery in the West Country.
And then you begin to get the feel of Exmoor, don't you? And you can hear the engine going heavy beat on it. You can hear the echo coming back as it... It was my personal live steam model railway. I didn't need anything else. That was my life as a little boy, you know.
No wonder that one former passenger actually sent a wreath when the line closed. It bore the inscription, "To Barnstable and Linton Railway, from a constant user and admirer. Perchance it is not dead, but sleepeth." For more than 70 years, that thought has haunted the imagination of generations of railway enthusiasts. If ever a line needed to be reawakened, it was this one. Had it survived, it would certainly be packing in the passengers today and earning its keep as a major tourist attraction. Unfulfilled hopes of a revival came and went as the years passed. But now, at last, the Linton and Barnstable is waking from its long sleep. At almost 1,000 feet, Woody Bay Station was the highest point on the line, with commanding views of the glorious Exmoor scenery. Today, it has become the starting point for the rebuilding operation, with more than a mile of track already in place. It looks like an impossible task, but so did the original plan to build the line back in the 1890s. One thing the railway preservation movement has established beyond any doubt is that the impossible can be achieved. Miracles just take a bit longer. Cut off from the rest of the network, the Isle of Wight's railways have always had to make do with second-hand equipment from the bigger companies on the mainland. Even in the 1960s, the railway system was a time warp. Its locomotives were Victorian. The wooden-bodied coaches they pulled were Edwardian. It all ended in 1966, when most of the island lines were closed. The one surviving stretch was electrified and equipped with pensioned-off underground trains from London Transport. But a group of enthusiasts resolved to save something from the scrapman. British Rail wanted £1,000 for a locomotive. Coaches were just £70 each. They managed to buy one engine and 6 coaches, plus 2 miles of track to run them on. Today, more than 40 years on, the line has been extended to 7 miles and connects with the electric trains at a new station, Smallbrook Junction. There are now 6 locomotives and a growing fleet of historic coaches, many of which had survived on the island as summer houses and holiday chalets. The Isle of Wight Railway specialises in rescuing and restoring them. Refitted with suitable underframes and wheels, they're back on the track, a unique living museum of early rail travel.
Working engines do have a fascination. I think it possibly goes back to when we were all children and would love to look down a hole at men digging a hole, or some poor guy having to change his tyre on his car in the rain or something. People love to see something happening, and people who go to the preservation societies in general are going to see locomotives working. They're going to see drivers and firemen and guards and porters all working together as a unit. They get a glimpse of the workshop, and there are guys in there welding and hammering and doing all the jobs that are necessary, and they find it fascinating, because where else do you see it these days?
As spiralling oil prices hasten the end of cheap air travel, taking the family on holiday to some exotic foreign location becomes an expensive business. Britain's traditional seaside destinations are already beginning to see an upturn in visitor numbers, and the Isle of Wight is no exception. In a changing world, tourist attractions like the steam railway are increasingly seen as a vital part of the island's economy. Many believe it should also be developed as part of a revived public transport system. By extending westwards, the railway could once more link the island's county town, Newport, with Ryde and its fast ferry link to Portsmouth on the mainland. The most ambitious railway revival so far by a preservation society is the rebuilding of the Welsh Highland. This 21-mile narrow-gauge line meandered through the heart of Snowdonia. From its carriage windows, passengers could enjoy unrivaled views of some of Britain's most dramatic scenery. But it never made a profit, and road competition killed it in 1935. Moves to reopen it began as early as 1964, but it was only when the nearby Festiniog Railway took on the challenge in 1990 that things really began to move. The Festiniog, built to the same gauge of just under 2 feet, was saved by enthusiasts back in 1954 and has become Britain's most successful narrow-gauge line. With this proven track record, it was able to unlock millions of pounds worth of grant aid and set about rebuilding the entire Welsh Highland Railway. Huge 60-ton steam engines were imported from South Africa, along with thousands of tons of track materials. Starting at sea level, track was laid from Carnarvon up to the summit at Rhyddhau on the flank of Mount Snowdon, and on down through the spectacular Aberglaslyn Pass, eventually reaching sea level once more at Porthmadog, where it connects with the Festiniog. This powerful symbol of Welsh enterprise, which at 25 miles is now Britain's longest heritage line, proves that railway rebuilding on a large scale is possible, if the money can be found. Most railway revival schemes cost a small fortune and involve an army of construction workers. But there is another way, which can be seen in action at Launceston in North Cornwall. Here, a married couple have built their own 2.5-mile line, with limited finances and more than a little help from their friends. It all began when Nigel Bowman bought a narrow-gauge steam engine from a Welsh slate quarry in 1966. It cost him just £60 at scrap price, and was certainly a wise investment. It's worth at least £60,000 today. But Nigel was not in it for the money, he just wanted to build a railway to run his loco on. He and his wife Kay abandoned their respective careers in teaching and nursing and moved to Cornwall.
Kay, when I first met her, had just changed her parents' central heating pump, and I thought, well, this seems quite interesting. She knew that I'd got this dream of moving to Launceston and said, look, come on, it's no good talking about it, we better go and do it.
Well, anything on engineering we enjoy and we can do. If you asked us to build a website or do anything of that sort of nature, count us out. We just don't want modern technology. But yes, putting a new building up, doing drains, water supplies, electricity, and clearing the track, of course.
With two of Nigel's old friends, they formed a limited company and bought a stretch of the abandoned line that once ran down to Padstow. On it, they set about building their own narrow-gauge track. A talent for locating cast-off equipment and restoring it to working order at minimum cost has allowed the Bowmans to become almost entirely self-sufficient. The result is a fully equipped railway, built at a fraction of the cost of most similar schemes, yet the whole operation is just as professional and just as safety conscious.
Launceston Steam Railway exists on a knife edge, really, of are Mr. and Mrs. Bowman getting enough pleasure out of running it.
The Launceston Steam Railway helps the town by bringing in visitors who might otherwise bypass it on their way to the seaside. The long and winding route to Padstow that once carried so many of those holidaymakers is long gone. Its crack train, the Atlantic Coast Express, is just a distant memory. But at Launceston, the sound of a steam whistle can still be heard. It may now be a narrow gauge train that travels that historic route, but the magic is still there. The Great Central was the last main line built in Britain until the high-speed route of the Eurostar. It opened in 1899 and was part of a grand vision to link Manchester with London and Paris, anticipating the Channel Tunnel by almost a century. Its bridges and tunnels were even built to accommodate the larger continental rolling stock. It was straighter and faster than most other main lines, but even this didn't save it from Dr Beeching's axe, and it closed in the late 1960s. But one stretch was saved by a Preservation Society. They also had a vision: to run a double-track mainline service of intercity steam-hauled express trains between Leicester and Loughborough. Today, the Great Central on a gala weekend is as busy as it was in its heyday, with long freight and passenger trains passing at speed on opposite tracks.
I've got very fond memories of looking back at the early 70s at a copy of a railway magazine, and there was these fledgling attempts to recreate a main line. And I think this place was run by the Main Line Trust in those days. And at the time, everybody thought, well, the Preservation Railway, the bubble will break, it'll never happen. You come back here 20, 30 years later, and for all intents and purposes, you are stood on a real mainline railway. And the great thing about the Great Central Railway is, as a team, they're not standing still. It's got the most fantastic communication plan, because there are very few people out there in the preservation world, and in the heritage world more generally, who don't know what they want to do here. This, in many respects, has to happen, because it will be potentially unique in heritage in this country. Nobody else has got anything like it. And in terms of sheer scale, you think about it, with a railway that's so long, it could potentially be a public railway again of some description.
Now, the railway is preparing to replace a series of missing bridges and head north to Nottingham, in one of the most ambitious railway reinstatements yet attempted. But a question mark hangs over the Great Central. The government is committed to building a new multi-billion-pound high-speed rail link to the north. There have also been calls for a similar scheme that would create a north-south freight artery, and most believe it should follow the route of the abandoned Great Central. So the preservationists' dream of a steam-worked main line just might be overtaken by the very last thing anybody expected to see back in the Beeching era: a national railway renaissance.